Good afternoon. Welcome to our weekly TuckerAllen Facebook Live. Every Friday at 1 o'clock, we talk about estate planning and elder law topics. Today we have Kevin Mason joining us. He's one of our TuckerAllen attorneys in Independence, Missouri, serving the greater Kansas City area. Just to refresh, TuckerAllen is an estate and elder law firm. We help clients with all kinds of matters related to that. We have offices in Illinois, Missouri, and St. Louis area and Kansas City area. So welcome. If you have questions that you'd be interested in hearing us address, we'd love to know that. Just maybe enter it there in your Facebook or go to our website and find one of our emails and submit it. We're always curious to hear if there's a topic you'd like to do. We have them planned out quite far in advance, but we'd love to add in some special topics. If you guys want to hear us address something, want to hear an attorney's input on something related to estate and elder law, let us know. Today, we're talking about distribution plans for trusts and what's the difference between a living trust and an outright distribution trust. So Kevin's going to help us with that a little bit. Kevin, before we get started, I always want to be careful that we're not using legal terms that are kind of over the average person's head. So first, can you help us understand when I say distribution, what that means?
Yep, absolutely. So a distribution is, like an inheritance. It's that asset, that money that's moving from you whenever you pass away to your beneficiary, who is the person that you wish to inherit from. So it's just a term that means we're taking money from the person who's passed away and we're shifting it to somebody who's now living, one of the beneficiaries.
Okay, so actually distributing the proceeds of the trust or the estate. Good.
Yep.
So there's lots of ways to distribute if we want to understand. Today you're going to talk to us about outright versus lifetime, right?
Yes.
So tell me, first of all, what does outright distribution mean?
Sure. So an outright distribution, it's kind of that very prototypical, whenever people think of an inheritance, that's what that is. It's all wills, what they're using are outright distributions. What it just means is that once the person who currently has the asset to be distributed, once they pass away, that then the asset is moving from them to their beneficiary in an outright manner. So it goes directly from them directly to the beneficiary.
Right. And there's no time delay, there's no complicating factors, it's just finish the paperwork and hand it to them, right? That's what we're talking about?
Yes,
okay.
So it's generally faster and simpler.
Okay, so then in contrast to that, tell me what does lifetime trust mean?
Sure, so a lifetime trust is an inheritance that goes from the person who created, that person who's passed away now, we call them the grantor of the trust. So they're the grantor of the trust. It goes from their trust, that original trust, and it goes into a different trust for the beneficiary. Okay. It's almost like the trust is continuing, and one way to think about it.
And so the beneficiary still has access to the money, but it's in trust instead of like in their hand to deposit into a bank account.
Yep. So a trust, right, is always kind of like a separate entity, especially in this type of trust. So it's a separate entity from the person, that beneficiary who's receiving it. So it's not going directly into their hands. It's going into this trust, this lifetime trust for them. And really, it kind of depends on how much access they have to it, because depending on what the grantor's wishes are.
The rule book of the trust, as we say, a trust is a rule book. So what the rule book the trust grantor created. So these are pretty different then, either directly in my hand or not directly in my hand. Let's talk about how someone might choose one or the other. Can you kind of outline for us what are the pros and cons of just outright distribution, just writing a check and sending me the money?
Yeah, so the first pro of it is just how fast and simple it is. So it really is it's a very easy, quick way, and it's in a trust, so we still get to avoid probate. So that's a huge plus, right? We get to avoid probate, and then it's very quickly goes just straight from the trust into the hands of the beneficiary. So that's kind of the really large pro to all of this, is that it's just fast and simple. And then the other kind of pro to it is that there's no need to have this kind of continuing relationship for the beneficiary with the trust. With the trust each year, we have to file, there's tax, ordinary income taxes for the trust that we have to get paid and have to file taxes and do all that. So none of that goes into this. It's just goes straight.
Maintenance. The trust kind of just closes down once all the money's given away, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. The trust just closes down, send a letter to the IRS letting them know, hey, don't be expecting any more money from us. This is no longer, this trust doesn't have anything in it anymore. So yeah, it's fast and simple. So that's the big pro to it. But
okay. Are there cons to this though?
there are.
Side? Okay, tell me about that.
Yep. So there are some, depending on the situation, there can be some fairly substantial, downsides to this. One of them is kind of what that pro is that it's going directly to the beneficiary. So it goes right into the beneficiary's hands. There's no stipulations on how they can use it.
And depending on who that beneficiary is or what their life circumstances are, what their health issues are, that could be a problem, right?
Right, absolutely. So, let's talk maybe about like life circumstances. Let's say they have some issues with spending too much money, or maybe they were in they're embroiled in a lawsuit for some reason right now. Whenever that money goes directly into their hands, what happens is that now, a creditor could potentially attach to that money because it's theirs. It's not the trust, it's now theirs.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the downside. Another one of the downsides is, nobody really plans for their children to get divorced or their beneficiaries to get divorced, but it happens. And if that money goes straight from the trust into the beneficiary's hands, and that creates the option that soon-to-be ex-spouse can have a claim on that inheritance.
Yeah, it goes into shared accounts. Okay, so that's a pretty big con, I would say. I think I would definitely want to be aware of that. So,
sure.
So if that's outright distribution, then tell me, understanding the pros and cons of that, tell me the pros and cons of doing a more of a lifetime trust option.
Yep. So again, the pro of a lifetime trust is that we're holding that money in trust. So it's not directly in the beneficiary's hands. So that means we can keep it away from creditors and soon to be ex-spouses, because you can say, oh, it's not really my money, it's the trust money. And the trust is going to have a spendthrift clause in it, which is just kind of a way to avoid creditors. It's going to have some things like that in it to make sure that those creditors or soon to be ex-spouses can't attach to it.
Right. So a layer of protection. I think that's a really big pro. Are there any cons to this that we need to be aware of, or is it just all pros?
Sure. So, there are cons to this. Some of the cons to this is like what I talked about earlier, is we have that continuing relationship with the trust. So that means, we are going to need to file taxes every year. There's duties related to a trust. They have to be prudent, there's a prudent investor rule, which means that you can't just let the cash sit there. It has to be invested somewhere. So there's some things that you have to keep up with, and those are things that you can, yes, there's maintenance. You can hire professionals to take care of them. There's CPAs and there's financial advisors. They can all handle that for you. So
can you pay them out of the proceeds of that trust?
Yes, you can.
Or does that have to be out of pocket a bit? Okay.
Yep.
So that can be a trust expense. Okay.
Yep. So it can be a trust expense. So, there's some maintenance associated with that. So that's kind of the main con of this. And, as a trust, the value of a trust kind of diminishes. The need to have this, lifetime trust may also diminish because of the cost of the maintenance.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So when you're talking with your clients, like, how do you help them sort of navigate the choice between outright and lifetime? What are the factors that sort of make you come down one side or the other for a client?
Sure. So there's some key considerations we kind of want to talk about during our meeting. And then, if they have a financial advisor, I might want to speak with them and say, hey, here's kind of what we're thinking about. Does this make sense to you? How much would this cost for you to continue on, or your firm to continue on doing this work? So, we're going to want to think about the beneficiary's age. That's a big one. If the beneficiary is really young, and there's a lot of money that would be going to them, we might say, we would like a lifetime trust. Let's create some stipulations on when they can and cannot use this money, because they're going to be alive for a long time here, and we want to make sure this lasts.
Yeah, you don't want to hand inheritance to a minor or an 18-year-old, right?
Exactly. No, probably not even a 25-year-old. So,
when I think about my kids, got that.
Yes.
Going.
So beneficiary's age. We want to think about, beneficiary's age, value of the assets, how much money there's going to be in that trust. We want to make those phone calls, figure out how much it's going to cost to maintain these lifetime trusts. And then the other thing is we just want to have kind of that difficult conversation of, okay, what do you foresee here in maybe the next 5 years being some potential issues in your beneficiary's life? Do you think that they have, a stable marriage? Do they have any potential like addiction problems? They're not fun conversations to have, but things that we do need to talk
Real
about.
things to consider. Yeah. Yeah, I got it. Good.
So, depending on the answers to those, then that'll help guide me on my suggestions.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. One thing I think I'm thinking about as I'm listening, what about people that already have a trust and maybe they don't know? I never even thought about what the distribution was, and I don't remember the attorney discussing that with me. How do I figure out what mine is, and can I change it if now that I've learned this and thought about it? Am I stuck with what my trust said, or can I modify it anyway? What are the possibilities for people with that?
As long as it's a revocable living trust, we can go ahead and we can go in and modify it. There's going to be an article within that, or there should be an article within that trust. If I can't speak to every trust in the world, but there should be an article within that trust that's allowing an attorney to go in and modify the document for you. And then we can create what's called a trust amendment. Or if there's other things that you are wanting to amend at the same time that might encompass a little bit more of the trust, we can just do a total trust restatement, and we can add in those things, create the stipulations you want, create the lifetime trust, whatever you can want. We can make those changes. It's just we got to all sit down together and kind of look at it and talk over those key considerations and see where to go from there.
Right. If I want strings attached to this money, I can do that. Okay, that's really good to know. I appreciate you taking the time to talk us through that. I hope it's informative to you that are watching us. Join us every Friday at 1. Remember that this isn't attorney-client, this is just education, but we want to do our best to educate you. So join us every Friday at 1, see what we have to say. Let us know if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about. And hope you all enjoy your weekend. Bye.